Greetings and welcome to my lecture on Chapter 12 on the topic of socio-emotional and vocational development in young adulthood. So, learning objectives: use the conceptual framework of attachment theory, analyze interpersonal relationships of young adults, identify their challenges, and suggest approaches for resolution improvement. Second objective is to determine level of compatibility between an individual's personal characteristics and the demands of a chosen career and suggest effective approaches to enhance the process of career development. So the happy, well-adjusted adult life. So in Freud's view, love is to bring one closer to the goal of happiness, and work is to provide a secure place and justify our existence. In Erickson's view, intimacy is for interpersonal sharing and generativity for creating and producing meaningfulness, right? So you can see Erickson's stages of change. And then developmental perspective of young adulthood is that identity issues resolved sufficiently make significant progress on two tasks. So establishing and strengthening bonds with people who will accompany one on his or her life journey, and then becoming a productive worker. Okay. So love and adult attachment theory. So attachment is a function of a caregiving relationship, and there's continued need for emotional and practical support of others. So research in adult attachment has two lines of questioning. One of the lines examines adult outcomes of attachment to primary caregivers in infancy. So questions that might be asked: do the earliest attachments endure throughout life? Do they affect quality of caregiving for children? And do we pass them on to our children if we've got certain types of attachments? As for another line of questioning, it's examining the peer and romantic partner attachments that adults have. So questions that can be asked through research include: how do early attachments impact adult relationships, and how do adult relationships change attachment statuses? So, looking at this therapeutically, you don't have to necessarily do research in order to talk to clients about these issues, about these questions. Talk to them about: how do you see the attachment that you had to your mom affecting this current relationship, if at all? How do you see your attachment to your dad, to your caregiver, to whomever as a child affecting your relationship with whomever now? And you can cause for some of that introspection. We can't ultimately just know how our clients' attachments affect their relationships, but we can, make educated guesses, if you will, and help clients to reflect on these things to develop perspective for themselves about how they think these things have affected them. So Sternberg, I don't know if this is in your textbook, but Sternberg's triangular theory of love. So it's the three pieces of liking, infatuation, and empty love. And then there's three in between spaces. So if a person has liking, infatuation, and, if they have intimacy, passion, and commitment, that leads to a consummate love. However, if there's only intimacy and commitment, then you get companionate love. If you only have passion and commitment, you've got fatuous love. And then if you've got passion and intimacy, that would be a romantic love, versus passion only is infatuation only. Commitment only is empty love, and liking only is intimacy only, perhaps, right? Seeing another example of this is this one, where it kind of breaks it up into colors. But I think it's really interesting you can kind of use this to educate a client on types of intimacy, types of love that exist. And you can talk to them about, where do you think your relationship falls on this triangle? I have several clients that I could see them telling me this is where they are, or this is where they are, or that, or this. Like, I really could see this being a very useful tool with clients. And so now realizing that, I'm probably going to use it a little more often. But yes, Sternberg's triangle theory of love, it's a way to understand the ways that people can connect in an intimate relationship. Okay, and then here's another way to conceptualize it. So you see the ones that have the dots, that piece is missing, versus the ones that have a line is what's present. So you see romantic love is intimacy, passion, infatuation is just passion, companion, right? You can see how each of these works. There's another way to conceptualize. And then a final way for anybody that likes a good chart, you can see the different relationship types here, and then whether the intimacy, passion, or commitment is low versus high in each of these types of love / liking. All right. And of course, you can feel free to pause and screenshot this or write it down, or you can either type in this link right here into your browser after you pause it to go check that out, because that's where that chart's at. Okay, so the first line of research, the nuclear family tradition, the past is considered a prologue. So data gathered using adult attachment interviewing, AAI, identified 4 different attachment styles. So there's the autonomous secure, where you're securely attached to your caregivers as a child. You can rely on them. You trust them, that they're, going to be there when you leave the room. Maybe there's that emotional permanence, that object permanence, if you will. You leave the room, mom's going to still be there for you. Dismissing is an early rejection and trauma related type of attachment style, where they're avoidant, anxious about emotional situations, and children that the person with dismissing attachment style will have avoidant attachments more likely. The preoccupied attachment style is likely due to hyperactivating. There's confused rhetoric about parents. Am I the parent? Are they the parent? Am I responsible? Are they responsible? Different things like that. And often they have children with anxious, ambivalent attachments. Unresolved attachment has to do with unintegrated fear, illogical interviewing, and they often have children with disorganized attachments. And then some cannot be classified, which may be a predictor of emotional disturbance, meaning like sociopathy or psychopathy, where there's no empathy. So this is a little hefty on the text, but you guys know how I like to do these lectures by now. So this left side has to do with avoidance is high at the bottom and avoidance is low at the top. And then across the top, anxiety is low to high. So looking at the secure attachment, this is comfortable attachment, where there are positive thoughts of self and others. This person would have high self-esteem, be able to set appropriate boundaries, be accepting, they're able to be vulnerable, they create meaningful relationships, they're comfortable with intimacy and learning, a parent to a child is aligned and attuned. As an adult, they're empathetic, responsive, engaged, and responsible. They might be having thoughts like, I'm worthy of love, I'm capable of getting love and support I need, and others are willing and able to love me. Right, so that's their secure attachment. So ambivalent attachment, otherwise known as preoccupied attachment. So the high anxiety here with low avoidance, right? So this attachment style, you would see negative thoughts of self and positive thoughts of others, which could lead to low self-esteem, being overly concerned about what others think. He doesn't like me, she doesn't like me, they're mad at me, I don't know what they're going to do, they're going to leave me, these kinds of things. They might be clingy, seek validation and approval. They want excessive intimacy, perhaps. There's a lot of grasping for straws, if you will, attention seeking, trying to get anything they can. The parent to the child may be inconsistent. As an adult, they may be controlling, blaming, and erratic, or maybe even unpredictable. And some self-talk or some core beliefs that a person with an ambivalent or preoccupied attachment style might think are, I'm not worthy of love, and I'm not capable of getting the love I need without being angry and clingy, right? Others are capable of meeting my needs, but they might not do so because of my flaws, right? So you see that insecurity, that anxiousness about, oh my gosh, what if I do something wrong? What if they leave me? What if they don't like me, right? Looking at the avoidant attachment style, this is also known as dismissive. So this would be high avoidance and low anxiety. So this person has positive thoughts about the self and negative thoughts of others. So they might just be, I'm going to avoid others to not be hurt. If I'm not attached, if I don't care, I can't get hurt, right? Versus if I am anxiously attached or preoccupied attached, I might really be worried about what everybody else thinks, and my emotional stability might be coming from the fulfillment of others. Okay. So some factors, some features of having an avoidant attachment style: high self-esteem, feeling independent, don't show emotions readily, uncomfortable with intimacy, avoiding closeness, blaming. To a child, they may be unavailable or rejecting. As an adult, they may be distant, critical, rigid, intolerant, and frustrated. They may think things like, I'm worthy of love and I'm capable of getting love and support I need. And also that might be thoughts of others are unwilling or are either unwilling or incapable of loving me, and others are not trustworthy. They are unreliable when it comes to meeting my needs. So because they don't trust people to take care of them, I'm gonna take care of myself, right? So there's that avoidance because I've been hurt by people that were supposed to care about me before. And so I don't trust anyone to take care of me. I'll take care of me for myself, right? And then the last attachment style is disorganized attachment or fearful. So there's negative thoughts of self and negative thoughts of others. So there's high avoidance and high anxiety. So low self-esteem, dependent, seeing self as helpless. They're fearful of intimacy. They expect to be hurt. There is rumination. The parent ignores the child likely. As an adult, they may be chaotic, explosive, abusive, and untrusting. They may have thoughts of being unworthy of love and not capable of getting the love they need without being angry and clingy. They may feel that others are unable to meet their needs, that others are not trustworthy or reliable, and that others are abusive and they perhaps deserve it. Right. So you guys have gotten a handful of different things about these attachment styles in the past, but I think it's really important to understand because attachment, it has to do with the therapeutic relationship, the rapport that you build with your clients. So if you've got a client that's got avoidant attachment with a therapist, how effective do you think that therapeutic relationship is going to be? If you've got someone that's got a preoccupied attachment with their therapist, how do you think that disclosure in work may be? Might become a very codependent relationship where your client won't stop coming to see you. I even had clients that stalked other counselors that I know because they were that, clingy. That particular client I'm mentioning is diagnosed bipolar or borderline personality disorder. And so there's some attachment issues severely there, fears of abandonment and such. But yes, attachment style is absolutely important in the therapeutic relationship and in therapy. Because if this client has goals for building relationships and things, but they've got an avoidant attachment style, how can they meet the goal of attaching with others? Which that maybe might not make sense that they're avoidant and they want to have relationships, but it could be that way. It's like, I've always avoided people, but I realize I'm lonely a lot of the time and I would like to try to work on being more open to relationships. Ding, ding, ding lets you know that they've gotten a dismissive avoidant attachment style, right? So another graphic that shows the attachment style. So you see the avoidance and anxiety crossbars here, and you see some adjectives here. So connected would be secure, clingy would be preoccupied, distant would be dismissive, needy would be fearful. And so no contact when you're dismissive or fearful, perhaps. Lots of contact or contact at least when you're secure and preoccupied. So you can see some descriptors here. So secure is close, comfortable with being close and independent. They have confidence that one is worthy of love, communicate and are responsive. They're able to be vulnerable. They have clear and healthy boundaries, empathetic and respectful. As for preoccupied, they're overly concerned with the uncertainty of a relationship. So they worry about an ex's ability to love them back. They require higher levels of contact and closeness. They seek constant validation and approval. Weak or unrealistic boundaries exist, and they're impulsive and manipulative, perhaps. As for dismissive boundaries, they value independence and over closeness and intimacy. They don't trust the intentions or actions of others. They look down on the expression of emotions, have rigid boundaries, and they're detached and cold, And then as for the fearful attachment style, there's fear of rejection and or abandonment, and they desire contact and closeness, but they expect to get hurt. They're prone to negative and pessimistic assumptions, have no boundaries, and passiveness is part of their communication style. And they also feel helpless, like they're a victim, where everything happens to me. Why does this happen to me? It's my fault. I'm the issue, all these kinds of things. So that's just another image to help you understand attachment styles. And last one, the simplest of them all, is just showing the avoidance versus anxiety comparison. So secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful. So maybe you know what the different four are, and you just need to remember which one's got more anxiety versus more avoidance to be able to distinguish between them. Okay, so in search of the working model, results of adult attachment inventory, TAP results representation of attachment. So there's not a direct measure of the adult's attachment to any one person, meaning your attachment can be different with your mom versus your dad versus your uncle versus your cousin versus your therapist versus your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever. It can be different from person to person because maybe different people have demonstrated different trustworthiness for you. But some people, they do have just a, generalized dismissive attachment or generalized preoccupied attachment or generalized disorganized attachment because it's something that works for them to help themselves feel emotionally safe. So no, don't assume that because attachment is one way with a person that it's going to be that way with other people too. It's rather the adult attachment inventory is rather a working model. It's a cognitive structure like a schema or prototype for relationships. It helps us to understand, predict, and act on information. It's like an algorithm for close interpersonal associations and provides rules for processing information and behaving rationally. Adults' attachment representations predict the quality of their attachments to their children, which is a determinant of parental caregiving behavior. So I found this next image is a pretty cool graphic from the Attachment Project. It's called The Life Cycle of an Attachment Style, and it shows how they are as children versus an adult versus as a parent. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and there's a second slide for this. So secure children are securely attached kids that might become upset when their caregivers leave. They respond positively to contact and seek comfort when they are frightened. When they're adults, secure adults show healthy and balanced behavior in relationships. They seek emotional support from their partners and provide such in return. These adults are comfortable being on their own. And as parents, secure parents are capable of regulating their emotions. They create a compassionate environment for their child. They view their child as a separate person, but they also empathize with his or her experiences. Right, so there's not enmeshment taking place where there's lack of boundaries and everyone's sharing an identity. That would be enmeshment. No one's allowed to be themselves, have their own boundary, have their own identity, do what they want to do. Everyone kind of has to have similar values, morals, rules, limits within which they function. As for avoidant kids might disregard affection from their caregivers. They tend to show aggression when among other children. As for when an adult, the development of an avoidant attachment style early in life often causes antisocial behavior in adulthood. So antisocial meaning rule breaking, causing harm to others, setting fires maybe. This might be something that sets the stage for a sociopath, right? I don't know if you guys remember, but in a previous lecture, I talked about the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. The psychopath is born without the ability to be empathetic, and the sociopath is socialized to not be empathetic. And so having a poor attachment style from childhood could be something that contributes to sociopathy. Or antisocial personality disorders, another name for that. So in extreme cases, avoidant and dismissive adults can become violent. And then in the parental realm, avoidant parents tend to disregard their child's attachment needs when avoidant. Such parents can be strict and controlling towards their children. And, excuse me, they do not tolerate any strong display of emotion and expect their children to be independent and tough. Sorry about that. Every time I read a lot, I start to yawn. So excuse me. But yes, they don't tolerate strong displays of emotions and expect their children to be tough. Right. Okay. And looking at the next slide. So anxious children are anxious and preoccupied, which lends to being very sensitive and responsive to others' needs, often at their own expense. They experience distress when their parents leave and are difficult to soothe when their parents return. As for adults, anxious preoccupied attachment can cause anxiety disorders and attention deficit disorders in adulthood. Adults tend to be self-critical and seek validation from others. And as for parents, anxious parents tend to be over-involved in their children's lives and, they tend to over-involve their children into their own feelings and emotional needs. So they might codependently rely on their kids to be fulfilling their needs. These parents often struggle with multitasking around their child. And then lastly, the disorganized attachment style. So disorganized kids tend to be fearful and express ambivalent behavior towards their parents. Approaching them is followed by distancing. So they don't want you to be close to them. So you go in for a hug and they back up type thing. Anger or aggression is shown without any obvious reason, or there's freezing in the parent's presence. So I don't know what to do with this. Right. So there's discomfort there. Such children are faced with a dilemma with their caregivers, which is the only source of their safety is also a source of fear. So it's like, I want you to be someone that protects me, but I'm also afraid of you, or I'm also disinterested in you, right? And you can see how that could definitely lead to parent-child relationship issues. So disorganized attachment for adults is associated with mental health disorders such as substance abuse, depression, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. Adults often avoid emotional intimacy and are not able to trust others due to fear of getting hurt. Disorganized parents might struggle with building emotionally intimate relationships with their child. They often behave in an ambivalent, inconsistent, and unpredictable way, which might confuse or or frighten the child. It's also 6:48 in the morning right now, so that might be why I'm yawning. Okay, so that's that image, the life cycle of an attachment. And where I found this image, I had to go to the website to cite it. But the attachment project on Pinterest has a lot of really great images like this, where it's like signs of being disorganized, signs of being anxious, stuff like that. So if y'all are interested in learning more about attachment, Pinterest has lots of really great pins for psychoeducation and on counseling related topics. So definitely something cool to check out. Okay, so final image on attachment for this slideshow. So some indicators of secure attachment. So looking at a child's behavior at different points in their life versus the parent at those same time points. So a secure child for 1 to 18 months, they signal their needs and relax when their needs are met. They're responsive, have a full range of emotions. They check back to parents for reassurance when strangers are present. They exhibit anxiety, anger, or flattened affect when parents leave. They're pleased when they're reunited with their parent, and they check in to feel safe when exploring, as well as turn to parents for comfort. When there's a secure parent attachment, they respond to baby signals. They identify needs most of the time. They return to relaxation along with the baby, and they feel good about themselves and the child. They offer nurturing, soothing responses. They woo the child, initiate positive interactions, call the baby by their name, and make frequent eye contact, as well as encourage safe exploration. So something I recently came across for the first time in my counseling is that I have a mother that after her baby was born, she's struggling to have an attachment. So there's disinterest in nursing, there's disinterest in holding the baby cries and she's annoyed, a lot of these kinds of things. And so understanding attachment styles can be really helpful with, even with mothers that have postpartum depression and anxiety issues, attachment issues. And so you can look at when she talks about, she may not realize that she has an insecure attachment, dismissive, avoidant, whatever. But when she talks about the baby, I'm not interested in nursing. I'm not interested in holding my baby. That's going to be telling you something. There's not secure attachment between that mother and child. And that can be something that you can work with them on if they are desiring to work on that. So 18 months to 5 years, secure attachment, the baby child can handle longer periods of separation in hours without anxiety, increasing ability. And they've also got an increasing ability to accept redirection, discipline, and authority. They show empathy, remorse, and guilt, and they use wooing and coercion to influence their parents. The parent is responsive to the child's needs and cues. They encourage growing autonomy and praise accomplishments. They redirect and set limits when needed without overreacting to bad behavior, and enjoy reciprocal affection and interaction with the child. As for grade school, secure attachment, they behave as though they like themselves. They show pride in their accomplishments, exhibit confidence in their own abilities, accept limits imposed by adults, establish eye contact, and express likes and dislikes. The parents are interested in child's school performance, accept expression of negative feelings. They respond to children's needs and fears. They initiate appropriate signs of affection, and they seem to enjoy the child. They know the child's likes and dislikes instead of being totally uninvolved and I have no idea, right? And then adolescents, they know their personal strengths and weaknesses. When securely attached, they engage in positive peer interactions. They exhibit signs of conscience. They're involved in interests outside the home, develop goals for the future, and they're emotionally close to their parents. And then the secure parent encourages self-control, trusts the adolescent with increasing levels of responsibility, interested in and accept teens' friends, and they're interested in teen school performance and show affection to those children, adolescents. So you may not always come across these secure attachment features of your clients' relationships, but it's definitely stuff you want to strive for, whether you're working with children, parents, adults that have these issues as children, things like that, right? Okay, so second line of research, the peer romantic relationship tradition. So 4 attachment needs are proximity maintenance, safe haven, separation distress, and secure base. All 4 needs are met in the context of adult attachments, also known as pair bonds. So 3 attachment prototypes in peer romantic tradition which are the tendencies to perceive and act in certain ways, involve avoidant, anxious, and secure. So the avoidant is dismissing, difficulty trusting, positive model of self, negative model of others. They prefer self-sufficiency, as you've been hearing and seeing in these slides. Anxious ambivalent is fearful. There's negative models of self and others. Attachments are desirable, but seemingly out of reach. And the secure attachment has a positive sense of self and positive models of others. So research on young adult dyadic relationships, partner selection, for partner selection, secure attachment is the most attractive. Anxious is the next most appealing, and avoidant attachment styles are the least preferred when you're looking for a partner. Predictions and findings are based on attachment theory. So secure is most often paired with other secure individuals. Avoidant is most often paired with anxious, and avoidant or anxious pairings are rarely found. So 2 people that are very anxious or 2 people that are very avoidant, not very likely to be together. Intimacy, satisfaction, and stability are tied to attachment models as well. So for the secure attachment style, there's positive emotion and satisfaction in relationships. In the avoidant attachment style, there's low physical comfort and they engage in sex less often. The anxious attachment style, and there's controlling nature and they're intrusive in caregiving. Sex may be used to avoid feelings of rejection. And the lowest satisfaction in a relationship style or dynamic is avoidant men and anxious women. All right, so it's just something to note. And, this might also be something to help clients with in terms of educating them about these attachment styles, because you might have a client coming in, oh, my husband just doesn't show me affection. My boyfriend just doesn't show me affection. And you can educate them on attachment styles and they might be like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend's dismissive. My boyfriend's avoidant, right? And so they might gain awareness of how different attachment styles are affecting their life and their stability, mental health, all these things. So communication styles and conflict resolution. So secure attachment is better in interpersonal communication and conflict resolution. They're less defensive and they're more compromising. Avoidant styles keep their emotional distance, have less anger and less warmth. Ambivalent, they're more negative reactions in that communication style. There's high stress and anxiety during interactions and more hostility towards the partner. There is little physiological change in secure individuals during conflict. And in terms of casual sex and attachment styles, the avoidant attachment style person may perhaps be promiscuous and use sex to avoid emotional intimacy. And anxious women often confuse sex with love, whereas anxious men feel vulnerable and fear rejection regarding sexuality. And again, these are definitely things that you're going to see in counseling with your clients. So Holland's theory of personal orientation environment types. So it's a measurement technique widely used in career counseling. So I always remember it as REASEC. That's how I've remembered the acronym for the different areas of personality type identified by Holland. So seeking compatibility of job demands and individual personality type is the goal of Holland's theory. So the realistic part of oneself is conforming, dogmatic, and materialistic. The investigative side is analytic, cautious, and critical. The artistic part is disorderly, complicated, expressive, and emotional. Social is sociable, friendly, cooperative, and tactful. Enterprising is adventurous, ambitious, domineering, and energetic. And the conventional side of self would be careful, efficient, inflexible, and inhibited. Types of stable over time or the types are stable over time. So a good fit means job satisfaction. So a good job fit means job satisfaction and good performance. Job crafting is where you shape job requirements to fit employee traits. So you make it fit what somebody might need. So that could mean letting a counselor make their own schedule. As in my case, I was able to make my schedule at my current job, which was great. So I get to work the hours that work for me and it makes school possible. And then you can look at table 12.3 in your book to see characteristics of Holland's 6 personality types. But of course, here's an image that I found for you guys to access. So zooming in so you can read it a little bit better. So the realistic person, having to do with things, people who have athletic or mechanical ability, they prefer to work with objects, machines, tools, plants, or animals, or to be outdoors. They have a preference for working with things as opposed to ideas or people. They prefer problems over concrete problems over abstract problems. As for the investigative person, ideas, there are people who like to observe, learn, investigate, analyze, evaluate, or solve problems primarily of a scientific or mathematical nature. They prefer working with ideas as opposed to people. They do not like highly structured settings. Artistic, that's the creativity side. People who have artistic, innovating, or intuitional abilities and like to work in unstructured situations. They use their creativity or imagination and prefer to work with self-expressive ideas. All right, this one go this way so we can reassess. So the social people person, these are people who like to work with people to inform, enlighten, help, train, or cure them, or to help them live up to their potential. They prefer solving problems through discussion and usually do not prefer to work with things. Okay, the enterprising person, task-oriented people. They are people who like to work with people. They are influencing, persuading, leading, or managing. For them may involve economic gain or be for the goals of an organization. They enjoy leadership position and dislike details. And lastly, the conventional likes order. So these are people who like to work with data, have numerical or clerical abilities. They carry things out in detail or follow through on others' instructions. They prefer structured situations over ambiguous ones. All right. And then here's another image with a little bit shorter description for each. So practical, hands-on, tangible work for realistic, structured, organized, and careful is investigative, expressive, creative, and visual is artistic, helping, empathetic, communicative, and friendly is the social, enterprising, they're influential, energetic, sociable, and a leader, and then confidential or conventional, I think they might have misspelled that, structured, organized, and careful. So reassess. So super's developmental approach, its processes determine vocational self-concept in job choices, life stages in vocational self-concept and experience. So growth is up to age 14 or so. Exploratory phase is adolescence through young adulthood up to age 24, perhaps, involving crystallization of goals, specification, implementation of job. The establishment phase is age 25 to about 44, where you try out and stabilize choices that are made. The maintenance and consolidation phase is involving ongoing adjustments from age 45 to 65. And then there's decline, that is before or after retirement, where the career winds down. So you may go through additional sequences of crystallization, specification, implementation, and stabilization. So here is Super's life career rainbow. So this is the original image that was used to depict Super's developmental theory for the career. So you see how the child experiences more and then less or more of these different things, or different parts of being a child can be existing across the lifespan in terms of the career. So you see the student at different points, things jump up, right? The leisurite, the citizen, the worker, the homemaker. And then you see the age and life stages, disengagement, maintenance, establishment, exploration, growth, and then the ages go here, right? And these are personal determinants that are psychological and biological that can affect the way that these things go. Or there are personal determinants, and psychological and biological factors and features that can contribute to how this path goes, as well as historical and socioeconomic determinants that can affect the way that development occurs. And so here is a more up-to-date image with some color. So you see how the dots are where the development is taking place in each one of these things. So the growth, exploration, establishment, maintenance, and withdrawal is the phrase that's used for disengagement in this image. And so like the last slide talks about, there are environmental, situational, and personal determinants that affect the development of these different life roles. And if I remember correctly, Super calls these different theaters in which we develop. And I believe that there was a primary 4 that he referred to. So growth, exploration, establishment, disengagement, right? Okay, so that's that image. You can check that out and pause this, screenshot it, or you can type in this website to go find that image. So continuing on, so realities of career development in young adulthood. So college trajectories, nearly 70% of high school students are having a college trajectory where they're wanting to go to college after high school. Their choice of majors influenced by social and economic conditions. So what's making the most money, right? I don't know if you guys are maybe part of the generation that this applies to, or maybe you're aware of it, but there's a lot of high schoolers, junior high kids that I've been working with that want to be an influencer on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. When I was in high school back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, that wasn't even on the radar. That was not something that people were talking about. I mean, Facebook came out in 2006, I believe, and Instagram came out in 2010. Snapchat came out in 2010. I know this because I looked this up the other day for a client, because we were talking about how some of these things didn't exist when I was in high school. And that can even tell you about some of the social issues that exist for kids now, that they have so much more access to their peers in ways that online bullying and things can happen. But yeah, so it can absolutely affect college trajectories. Maybe these kids are more so wanting to be YouTubers and things like that, because that's kind of where that generation's at. There's a lot of people that do influencing and get paid for promos and whatever. And so may or may not want to go to college based on these things. So currently there's an increase in medical careers, according to the book, and a decrease in business careers. There's less gender bias in majors and occupations in the last 3 decades. So there's less, gender roles that are needing or seeming to be needed to be fulfilled in the minds of people. So women doing medical, clerical things, and men doing business, law school, doctor things. So SES, so socioeconomic status, race, and ethnicity affect college enrollment, major, and retention. Lower SES and minority students are linked to lower retention, meaning that they may enroll, but they may not stay, more likely to not stay. The pros of college, there's opportunities to try different majors and careers. Trying different classes is a way to get exposed to different fields and what you might be doing for work if you were to do it as a job. College also increases occupational opportunities, and there's a greater likelihood of being healthy and having a successful marriage, because there's meaning that you are able to give to your life through your learning, which college doesn't have to mean a 4-year degree, or, being like me, I'm in what is it? I think like 21st grade or 20th grade this semester, being in a PhD. You don't have to get a PhD to be happy. If you want to go get a welding certificate, like absolutely go get you one. Those can make 6 figures, people that do welding. And, I always tell my clients, if what you want to do requires a degree, then go get one. But if what you want to do doesn't require a degree, it's not necessary, right? So for me, like I want to be like Dr. Whitaker, I want to be a counselor education professor for master's students, like what I'm doing right now, in order to impact future, generations of counselors for the good. And so I need a PhD in order to do that. And so here I am getting one. But some people don't have those aspirations. So a PhD might not be necessary for what they want to do, right? So to be a master level counselor, you have to get a master's, right? Which is why you're in this program. And then the forgotten half in the college of for all era. So the forgotten half is the age 18 to 24 people who don't go to college. there's a decline in employment rate for young adults without a college degree, and there's a greater decline in their income over several decades. They have their goals are the same for college and non-college youth. So whether or not people go to college, they want good pay, opportunity for advancement, marriage, and children. And then the outcome is unfortunately bleak for non-college young adults. So it's beneficial to get a degree in a lot of regards, but not every job requires one, right? And that's what I like to often tell clients. So you guys will definitely see people coming to counseling. I want to change jobs, but I don't know what I want to do. And you can help them with the Holland Code or the Myers-Briggs or another Big Five personality quiz or the 4 animal types. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. ONET, all these kinds of things you can do to help people with career counseling. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of people coming in and maybe even working with college age students that are transitioning from high school to college. I love that population because it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to help me adult, right? Like it's kind of what's going on. And, you know, there's a lot of validation that can be done because you graduated high school. You can do this. You got in because you met the requirements, right? And so there's a lot of empowerment and challenging anxious core beliefs and things like that. That's really cool. But yes, absolutely. College and career counseling, very much so part of the profession of counseling. So career development in women versus men. So there's diminishing work-related gender differences. There's greater gender equity in many fields that used to be gender biased. Gender still predict vocational interest, it's seen. So women tend to focus on relational and social elements of a career choice. As for the influence of gender role beliefs and lifestyle preferences, women are more concerned with work-life balance and child rearing, whereas men have a greater concern for having the role of being a primary wage earner. Doesn't mean that every man feels that way or every woman feels that way, or every person, you know, conforms to either one of those. It's just that's what's seen. There's a gender wage gap, so women earn less than men. Women's work is evaluated more negatively than men's. Women are viewed less favorably than men despite comparable skill levels. So there's still some advocacy that can be done for your female clients in that way, women clients in that way. So work in the development of self-concept. So generativity motives influence one's work life as adults. So their sense of industry, self-efficacy, which is their belief that they can affect their world and make change. There are 2 orientations. So there's mastery and helplessness. So the mastery view, there's determination to succeed, and there's a growth mindset versus the helplessness view involves giving up, and an ability mindset where intelligence is seen as a fixed thing. Like, I can't get any smarter. Oh my gosh, this sucks. Like, I'm always gonna be stuck this way. You know, these different things. The hindrance of stereotype threat involves fear of mirroring the stereotype that exists for that person. So a woman might be like, oh my gosh, I'm just a woman. I'm never going to be appreciated. No one's ever going to pay me appropriately. Or a racial stereotype you might abide by. You might think that that's going to happen to you, or things like that, which can hold you back from having self-efficacy, from having a sense of industry where you believe that you can do things because you're afraid of a stereotype coming true for you. And you can see that in clients, definitely. Like I had 2 clients that were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, that were autistic, that one had gone and gotten a master's degree and said, I don't see autism as, you know, a barrier to me being successful. I just see it as part of who I am. And then another client in that same group, I'm autistic and I'm never going to amount to anything because I'm autistic, and and just going on this long rant about how he can't and won't. And the other client was like, that's not true. Look at me. I have a master's degree. Like, you can do it too. You know, it's a matter of how do you allow stereotypes to affect you, right? And you can help clients to look at that. So features of generativity, there's desire peaking in the early 30s and accomplishment that peaks in middle adulthood. It's typical for young adults to have generative desires and work that makes a meaningful contribution. Right? So they want a job that means something, that they're either giving back to the world or it's making some positive impact in some way. And I feel smart, something like that. Okay, and then applications, so attachment and counseling context. So applications of attachment theory and therapy. The therapeutic bond is the primary mechanism of change. There's a handful of research studies that I could have cited that show that the therapeutic bond absolutely makes a difference. If you don't have positive attachment with the client, the therapeutic relationship isn't likely to be very successful. You want to help clients move towards greater attachment security, and that can look like simply respecting whether or not they trust you. Like, I understand trust is a process. It's okay if you don't feel ready to share that with me. That's all right. And respecting the level of trust or willingness to share that they do or don't have at any given time. The client attachment to the therapist is a predictor of therapy outcomes. Therapist attachment security is a factor in responses to dismissing or avoidant clients. So if a therapist struggles with attachment, it could lead to not helping clients that are more dismissing and avoidant. Right? Oh, they don't want my help. I'm not helping them. Ugh. Right. So you could see that paying attention to your own mental health and to your own, relational style with people, very important for being an effective counselor. Because you otherwise might unknowingly be doing client harm or not providing the best services you can because of bias or what have you. And then attachment is the basis for understanding client behavior and needs. Applied to couples, you want to help partners reconnect and work with underlying emotional needs that lead to conflict. And for attachment-based family therapy, ABFT, four components. There are four components that repair attachment relationships and strengthen connections. Application. So importance of this work. Dissonance is created by vocational choices that are strongly influenced by family, but contradictory to individuals' personality styles. Counseling is to revise career goals and engage in self-exploration. Career counseling interview can help create a life portrait. You can look at table 12.4 for sample questions of career counseling interviewing in your book. Shaping self-efficacy to increase likelihood of career success. So scaffolding by helpers helps instill a strong sense of self-efficacy. There are also pressures and threats of health adverse social workplaces. High work effort and low regard for the worker equals workplace stress, and individual interventions help, and collective action is also needed. So the end of the slides, and now for some chapter 12 questions. So from a developmental perspective, what does it take to be happy and well-adjusted in young adulthood? A, B, C, or D? Intimacy and generativity, C. What attachment style includes individuals who are able to come to terms with their difficult past, realistically reflect on the insecure attachments associated with early adversity, and yet nurture secure attachments with their own children? It's missing, consistently secure, unsecure, unresolved. A, B, C, or D? Earned secure. Researchers suggest that placing people into quadrants, as in Bartholomew's typology, poses which of the following problems? Overemphasis on the dimension of avoidance and typecasting, overuse of attachment scales for identifying typologies, overemphasis on the dimension of anxiety and typecasting, or D, failure to represent the continuum of individual differences. B, failure to represent the continuum of individual differences. In relationships, what attachment style is more controlling and more likely to be characterized by mistrust in the relationship? Highly independent, highly secure, highly avoidant, or highly anxious? Highly anxious. Which of the following factors continues to be more powerful than the others as a predictor of vocational interests? Marital status, race, gender, or ethnicity? More powerful predictor of vocational interests. Gender. Miss S and her infant just participated in an attachment study. First, researchers interviewed Miss S to determine how she represented her attachment relationship with her own early caregivers. Second, the researchers assessed the quality of her baby's attachment to Miss S. They are seeking to identify relationships between a parent's working model of attachment and the quality of the attachment the infants form with them. This attachment study is part of which research tradition? The nuclear family tradition, the peer romantic partner tradition, the generativity tradition, or the intimacy tradition? The nuclear family tradition. So in a dimensional analysis of adult attachment style, as opposed to a simple set of attachment categories, the focus is on the degree to which a certain tendency is exhibited. What two continuous dimensions or tendencies seem to characterize most attachment scales? Attachment intolerance, avoidance and anxiety, passion and avoidance, or approach avoidance and intimacy? What two continuous dimensions or tendencies seem to characterize most attachment scales? Avoidance and anxiety, which that could be remembered through the image. So let me show you. Avoidance and anxiety, right? Okay, so 48. Okay. In studies of problem discussion and conflict management between partners, individuals with which type of attachment style are most likely to report feeling hostile and angry after a discussion session? Avoidant, ambivalent, secure, or there are no differences? Ambivalent. All right. Hillary is a 19-year-old college freshman. If she is typical of most college students today, which of the following is her most important reason for attending college? To get a better job, to find a spouse, to work on self-development, or to construct a philosophy of life? To get a better job. And the last question. Karina and her friend Joanna began their college careers at a competitive Ivy League school, and they both had high grade point averages and high test scores in high school. Yet both of them are having a hard time getting good grades as freshmen. They find the amount of reading and their performance requirements to be so demanding that each of them has a D grade, has had D grades on exams. Now in their second semester, Karina is digging in, working harder, and starting to have more success, while Joanna seems discouraged and is considering giving up. Which of the following is most likely true of Joanna, who seems discouraged and is considering giving up? She entered college with an expectation of failure. She exhibits a helpless pattern. She has an incremental view of intelligence, or she has a strong mastery orientation. She exhibits a helpless pattern. I can't do it. Woe is me. These kinds of things where she's just, I can't do anything about it. And you could even identify that as an external locus of control issue where she believes that things outside of her control her life. She's not in control, which would be an internal locus of control, as I believe I can affect things around me. All right, final slide. So some questions for the comments. Is there an attachment style that you perceive as being the hardest to work with? Why? What are some methods you plan to use for building rapport with clients? An example is humor. I use lots of humor. I love to make clients laugh, and I almost feel like I failed if they didn't laugh at least once during our session, because I feel like it just helps to lighten the seriousness of counseling, and to maybe lighten the weight of the pain that they carry when they bring their issues in. So I like to use humor a lot. And then another question, just for reflection for me, I love to grow and build upon my skill set as an educator, as a counselor. And I would love to know if there's anything that you as a viewer think that I can do to improve upon my lectures. And if there is anything, what would you like to see me change? Do you want more graphics? Do you want less graphics? Do you want me to talk faster or slower? Is there anything that I can do differently that would help you learn better from these lectures? And I would love to hear from you. And feel free to leave your answers in the comments below this video. And that is all I have for the Chapter 12 lecture. See you in the next one. Thanks.